Welcome back to the Ignore the Template podcast, the only FPL podcast on the entire internet, hosted by me. My name is Devin. You guys know the intro by now. And today we are talking about general advice heading into Gameweek 1, because if I'm honest, I've been perusing Reddit. I've seen a lot of first drafts, and I think a lot of people are falling into some big pitfalls that are going to damage you in the early part of the season. So hopefully this advice can help you avoid some of those. If you enjoy this kind of content, and like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and let's jump into it. Okay, now the first piece of advice that I'm going to give, I think is probably the most important, so I cannot stress this enough. Go with Premier League proven, minutes nailed, ideally no injury prone players. I'm looking at you, Reece James. So no punts. And that's not the most fun way to play. I know everybody wants to get on these players that have low ownership and that people aren't clocked onto. But seriously, the biggest disservice you can do to your team is going for even just a few punts that don't even play game week 1, and then you're scrambling. You only have one free transfer heading into game week 2, so you really have to limit your risk game week 1. Let's take a look at this demonstration. Shout out to fpl.team. It looks like my ad blocker is not going crazy on your website anymore, but this is an extreme example. I will admit that, but it's used to demonstrate how a couple players can just blow up your entire team and screw your season before it's basically even started. So looking at the goalkeeper pairing, not outrageous. I've seen quite a bit of this because Kinski's cheap. We're probably expecting Tottenham to do much better than 17th. So just on the basis of it, probably not the worst pick. And you're pairing with Dubravka because he's likely going to be the number 2, assuming Vicario is sold. Now, what if Vicario isn't sold by the start of game week 1 and Vicario starts and you get no goalkeeper points heading into game week 1? You're going to panic. You're going to want to sell that goalkeeper, but looking at the rest of the team, there's probably some other issues that you're going to have to deal with as well. So that's example 1. Number 2, Mascara, similar situation. We know Saliba is going to be injured to start the season. Arsenal are blessed with center backs. I know a lot of people are on Mascara. He could very well be the replacement for Saliba, but you could just as likely see a situation where the back line is Calafiori, left back, Hincapié, left center back, Gabriel switching over to the right center back, and then Timber right back. No Mascara. There's about a billion other combinations you could do as well. Ben White maybe playing as a right center back. So as much as I like Mascara's price point, it's a cheap way into the Arsenal defense, I probably wouldn't personally go there. Also, we've got limited data on him. We're getting the Arsenal clean sheets potentially, but we don't know exactly what else he's going to contribute. So even though he's cheap and you get those potential Arsenal clean sheets, which I think the percentage has to go down if Saliba's not playing, just full stop. But yeah, it's risky is what I'll say. Reece James, hopefully I don't need to talk about this one too much. Injury prone player. I just wouldn't go there. Game week 1, also was injured at the World Cup, which he went to, played as many minutes as you could. Also, on top of that, new potential setup under Xabi Alonso. Is he going to be playing as a right center back? Is he going to be playing as a right wing back? I would, or you could play in the midfield. I mean, there's just so many questions around Reece James. I would probably just avoid. And the main point I want to come away from all of this is that just because you may be avoiding the punt game week 1 doesn't mean you can't jump on it in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 game weeks. That player is still potentially going to be there. And while you may not get potential points at the, game week 1 through before whenever you bring them in, you can still get that player. It's just getting more information is going to be very valuable to you, especially at the beginning of the season. Then next to Reece James, we got Vuskovic, who I super highly rated, did really well in the Bundesliga, is an absolute aerial goal threat from set pieces. I think he's going to be great for Brighton. You could see how there's a lot of positives there. I'm not technically really against this one, but we just don't know how he's going to play in the Premier League. We don't know because there has been turnover in the Brighton backline. Is he just going to jump straight into that Van Hecke role? I don't know. Enough questions for me to say I'd probably just avoid for now. Rodgers, Premier League proven. Chelsea have a lot of attacking mids, and while I think Rodgers probably will start game week 1, there's some level of uncertainty of how Chelsea are going to play. So probably enough risk for me personally that I wouldn't do it, but I totally understand this. Rodgers is probably the least egregious on this list if I have to give a quick look. Yeah, probably the least egregious, apart from maybe the bench players. If you are just not going to be playing, if you're not going to be rotating a lot, Rodgers I think is fine. But again, it's one of those questions where if you have several other punts in your team, do you want to add like even a little bit more risk with Morgan Rodgers and how they might set up? I think, yeah, that's an open question. Krupi Jr., I just wanted to include one Bournemouth player who actually is relatively higher price, like considering, you know, you've got Tavernier at 6 million to boost Krupi Jr. from 4.5 million forward to 7.5 million midfielder. I probably have some question marks there. Plus he did overperform his underlying data quite a bit, but I just include him here because new manager, Iriola, we know is done very well in the Premier League. Is Marco Rosa going to be able to replicate that? I think that's a bit of a question. And again, not as egregious as some of the other ones, but just combining them all together, you don't want to add too much risk in your Game Week 1 team. Bruno Fernandes, we can ignore that. That one is not a risky pick, but I just wanted to resemble something that could look like a potential Game Week 1 team. So Bruno Fernandes, Erling Haaland, I don't have any concerns. I think those are both good picks. Ryan Cherky, on the other hand, kind of like the Chelsea phenomenon of it's a new manager. We don't exactly know how they're going to set up. Phil Foden is right there as well. So you could interchange Cherky and Phil Foden. I don't know who is going to start Game Week 1. I don't even know if preseason is going to tell us a whole lot about that either, because Turkey obviously went to the World Cup. Foden did not. So we'd expect Turkey to get preseason minutes, more so than Foden. But I don't know necessarily, like maybe Maresca has a plan that Phil Foden is going to be the guy playing off the striker and in that 10 role. And we could just see Turkey not playing, not getting at least 60 minutes. Enough of a risk that I would ignore. Yeah. And the last few players I could hopefully rattle off pretty quickly. So nothing really against Sesko, but just imagine it's any player coming off of an injury, yellow flagged, any level of uncertainty about injury. I would probably lump them into this category where, again, it's just if you're combining that plus minute risk players plus players coming from a different league, it's just too much risk. So we'll see as preseason progresses if Sesko can get a bunch of minutes in his legs and he'd be fit to start Game Week 1, but otherwise I'd kind of avoid. Also, we just don't know how many minutes he's going to be able to get. He played quite a bit towards the end of the season, but yeah, wouldn't be going for a player like Osula. There may be good upside and he may be a fantastic player, and the price is decent. But again, I would just go for players you know are just going to play Game Week 1. And then just to mention some of the bench players, we've got 2 newly promoted sides. So this is a little bit different. They could be nailed and no problem there, but newly promoted sides are going to have a quality gap with the teams that are already in the Premier League. I think just on face value, we can accept that. So especially with defenders, cheap defenders, if you are thinking about potentially playing them, even in fixtures that look pretty good, they may get an absolute hiding. So yeah, you don't want to have players, even if they're playing fit, nailed, etc. If you don't know how they're going to play in the Premier League, that's enough of a yellow red flag for me. And then the last player, Hughes, just we don't know about his minutes, and he's 4.5 million. So if you just are not planning on playing him, that's fine. But if you are the type of player where if you start seeing zeros next to players' names and you start to panic a bit and like make a bunch of transfers and kind of throw off your whole rhythm at the beginning of the season, I just would not take on the level of risk. So again, just to sum it all up, biggest piece of advice I can give, especially to the new players out there, just really bend over backwards not to go for any punts. And I know that can be difficult and it's not fun, but just keep it conservative game week 1, and then as the season progresses, you can start to build in more punts and differentials and play the effective ownership game and all that. But game week 1, keep it tight. Second piece of advice is to spread your funds wider than you think. And maybe some people are adhering to this, but I think there is somewhat of an inclination, and maybe this is more like an old school FPL way of playing, but to have a 4.0 goalkeeper, I probably still will, 2 4.0 defenders, and then either like a 4.5 million midfielder or a 4.5 million forward that's just not going to play, and then lumping all of that money into your starting 11. And while that is a totally viable way of playing and there are pros and cons to that, I think for starting out, you probably want to spread your money a little bit more thin than you think. And there are a couple reasons behind that. So reason number 1 is if we go back to last season, we can see that the highest scoring team in the entire game, a squad of 15 players, was £100 million. So it was exactly affordable. So there's going to be players lower down the price list that are going to perform much better than their price, and they could perform as these like higher price players or even premiums, which we've been able to see over the past couple seasons. So don't underrate some of these cheaper players just because they're maybe not as flashy as some of the more higher price players. So that's reason number 1. Number 2 is you're able to spread your bets out. Like, think of it, picking all these players as like a little mini bet. If you're able to spread your bets out across your whole squad, you may see that one of the players that you just considered like a bench guy or somebody that wasn't going to get a lot of time in your squad, they end up being kind of one of the higher performers. I saw that with my team last season when I did a really quick wild card. I think it might have been game week 2 or 3. I brought in Mukiele and he ended up being one of my better defenders across the entire season. So don't take price for price doesn't equal points. So yeah, by spreading out your funds a little bit more on the bench than you'd probably like, that does allow you to place bets a little bit wider out. You're probably not going to be putting a bet on Issa Diop, for instance, although I have him in my team, and yeah, it's not a big bet. But what I'm trying to say is, if you focus your funds on the starting 11 exclusively, you're kind of narrowing where you think the points are going to be. But if you spread it out a little bit more, you give yourself a little bit more flexibility in the sense that, okay, well, if, I don't know, Semenyo doesn't play and it ends up being like Turkey and Foden in those attacking midfield positions, I've got this guy on the bench who actually is pretty good, and I don't have to deal with the Semenyo substitution or transfer immediately. So I think there's a lot of good reasons behind maybe spreading the money a little bit more than you'd want. So the alternative way to that, and the only way that I think I could make that a justification for not spreading the funds out, is if you really want to play aggressive and you're willing to take a bunch of hits at the beginning of the season, because the one big boon of having more money in your starting 11 is that if you have like a the highest priced player in each position, like you have a Gabriel, Bruno Fernandes, and Haaland for some reason, like if Gabriel gets hurt, you can swap him down to any defender possible in the game because he's the highest priced defender. Same with Bruno Fernandes. If somehow he gets hurt or whatever, you can swap him to any midfielder in the game. Same with Haaland. So that would be the justification. But the thing is, with Game Week 1, you've only got one transfer going into Game Week 2. So you have to use that wisely and strategically. But if you're willing to play aggressively and you're willing to take on hits, and that is not going to mess with your psyche and throw off your entire game, then I think that is a viable strategy. Again, I still lean towards just like spreading the money a little bit more, going for maybe cheaper players than you'd think. And I'll show you my team. I think I've accomplished this, and yeah, hopefully this is a good template, not to kind of use that, but hopefully this is a good reference and starting point that you could see, oh, okay, we've got basically 14 playing players. I can see how this works. So here is my team. I'll read it out really quick and then we can kind of dive into some of the players and decisions. But at the back, David Raya and Alex Palmer, Gabriel, Calafiori, O'Reilly starting back three, but I've got Mitchell and Issa Diop on the bench. Midfield, I've gone with Mbumo, Ismail Assar, Njai, Shada, and Taverniers currently on the bench. Forward line, Erling Haaland, Calvert-Lewin, João Pedro. So we can kind of see on the base of it, I think I'm following my first rule, which generally no punts. The ones that I would probably argue against, maybe Calafiori, maybe O'Reilly. The couple reasons there, Calafiori has had injury concerns in the past, but by not going to the World Cup, hopefully being able to play lots of preseason, should be good for injury. And I think he's either going to play as a left back or a left center back. So I think he's probably set there. O'Reilly is probably my biggest punt, if I'm being completely honest, in terms of minutes. They do have Nori, they do have a new manager, but I just think knowing how Maresca plays, I think O'Reilly is going to be like one of the most important players to how that team sets up. Because if we remember how Maresca played, he had these fullbacks tucking into the midfield and bombing up. Like we saw that really effective with Malo Gusto in particular. So I think O'Reilly is just like a perfect fullback for Maresca. So I think he would be really, really good. The alternative was maybe to go for like a Gehi, but I think even that, there's just more competition there. Like Gvardiol could play in that position, Ruben Diaz, they've got Kushinov. So Man City actually have a ton of center backs. And while I do think that Mark Gehi probably will end up being the starting center back, I just think O'Reilly has more of a shot, like taking into consideration how Maresca plays. So yeah. And then the rest of the players, I think, speak for themselves. So yeah, I really don't think there's a minute concern. Calvert-Lewin, maybe an injury concern, but he was pretty fit last season, if I'm completely honest. Issa Diop, that was the only affordable player. I feel more confident that I've got Tavernier and Mitchell on the bench that will likely be ahead of him most game weeks. And then Alex Palmer from Ipswich probably won't play, but that's a placeholder. We're still early. I'm confident that we'll have some 4.0 playing goalkeeper, maybe not. So if I was to consider that I really, really want 15 playing players, I could downgrade David Raya to a Donnarumma and go up to like Kinski or Verbruggen or some other playing goalkeeper. I probably won't do that though. The only reason I would do that would be if I think I might play bench boost game week 1 or early on. So that's a little caveat to the rule, but yeah, I'm feeling relatively confident about my team not being a minutes risk, and the fact that I've got funds spread to the bench where I would most weeks I would feel very comfortable with Mitchell or Tavernier playing if some of these players have bad fixtures or if they pick up an injury or whatever, so that I don't have to deal with it right away starting game week 2 basically. And the last little point I'll make on this tangent that I'm making here is that transfers are so valuable, especially at the beginning of the game. And while you can take hits, it is a risk on its own. So being able to allocate transfers to strategic moves early on in the game is going to set you up so well for the first part of the season. And not taking hits is just going to set you back. So having a team that's a little bit more conservative, and while I could have gone for like a Bruno Fernandes, maybe I could have squeezed it, or I could have had like a Semenyo or a Verts or somebody higher priced. I think going for Sar, I love him at that price point, and Jai on penalties 6 million, Shada 6 million, Tavernier 6 million. I just think going a little bit more conservative in that aspect is going to set me up better for the early part of the season. Now, it could all blow up in my face, but yeah, we'll have to wait for Game Week 1 to see that. Next piece of advice, we're on number 3 at this point, is to be adaptable. So don't go into Game Week 1 having some set strategy for chip usage and transfers and like building in all these, like we're going to go from this player to this player because the fixture switch at Game Week 2. Honestly, just go in as flexible, be adaptable, so that if something does happen, you can adapt to it. If we go back to my team last season, I had a horror show, not really self-inflicted, but I think I had about an injury every single game week, at either an injury or a suspension every single game week for the first like 5 game weeks. So I really couldn't, I had to be adaptable. If I wasn't adaptable, there's my alarm going off. If I wasn't adaptable, my entire season would have just been tanked from like the very beginning of the game. But if that was a very rare instance where I got all these injuries and suspensions and all this stuff, unexpected suspensions. I think Konsa got a red, like one of his first red cards of his senior career. But if I didn't have to deal with all that stuff, I could have been more strategic, and it could have even set me up better than what I ended up having to do. So be adaptable. Don't go in with a plan. I think that's a fool's errand, honestly. You can have like a general vibe of what like you may want to do, but just recognize that shit is going to happen. You're going to get injuries. You're going to get suspensions. There's going to be unexpected benchings. Like, even as conservative as my team is, I can almost guarantee there's going to be at least like one weird benching that nobody expects. And that just happens. 4th piece of advice. This is like my 3rd take. I'm saying 4th piece of advice. I am so tongue-tied. 4th piece of advice is do not overthink your team at this point in the season. I think this is kind of the perfect opportunity to just set up your draft and just wait till about a week before the season starts. We've got about a month, 3 weeks. By the time this comes out, who knows? But just set your team aside. Don't overthink it. Don't make a million drafts. You're just going to drive yourself crazy. You're going to overthink certain players and if they're going to play and all that stuff. Just set it aside. Wait until, a week or maybe even just like a few days before the season where we actually have preseason info. We have a little bit of information on like who's going to play, who's fit, all that. And then dive back into, then you could start overthinking a bit. No, but then you can really start building your team. I think at this point, we're just in this gray area of like transfers will happen. We don't know how teams are setting up. There's new managers, new players to the league. This is the point where there's the most uncertainty in the game. So just set your FPL team aside, wait until the beginning of the season, basically get back into it. Advice number 5, tip number 5. Don't spend all your money if you don't have to. So like, take my team, for instance. I've got it up. Like, I could move some money around and get like a higher price player, like we could probably turn Ismail Assar into like a Semenyo, for instance. But if you don't feel like that extra million or 0.5 million is going to drastically improve your team, then just leave it in the bank. Honestly, like, don't force an upgrade that you don't view as a true upgrade, because money in the bank can be really useful, especially considering that they've got that new price tracking thing in the native FPL app, and you don't need to go to, FPL statistics was the old one, but live FPL to track the player pricing and if they're going to rise and fall. This is going to be the season where I cannot imagine how insane the pricing changes are going to be at the beginning of the season, where all the players in the game are active. So players are going to increase and they're going to decrease quickly in price. So for that reason, having some money in the bank is really valuable. Now, that's if you don't want to force an upgrade. If you feel like it is a true upgrade, go for it. So, but if, let's say I had, I don't know, a lot of my players are, let's say I had $1 million in the bank right now, I could move Ismail Assar to Florian Wirtz, 6.5 to 7.5. If I really thought that Florian Wirtz was just going to absolutely break the game open and completely change the game, be a breakout star, there would be an argument there. But I really don't see much between Ismail Assar and Florian Wirtz. If I'm being completely honest, even as a Liverpool fan, they may have similar point totals at the end of the season. But that's partially because I think Ismail Assar is underpriced and Florian Wirtz might be a little overpriced. I don't know. It's early to say, but I really rate Ismail Assar, basically. But what I'm trying to say is, if I had that extra million in the bank and then I found out that Njai made a deadline day transfer to Saudi, which that is actually being discussed in the background for anybody who's unaware. So keep an eye out for that. But if Njai makes a random transfer after Gameweek 1, which I think is possible, I can't remember, but after Gameweek 1, and now I'm down a player just completely out, I can use that money and go to players that are he's 6 million. So I could then go to a player that was 7 million, because I've got quite a few of those £6 million players. So the pool of players is maybe limited at that 6 million price point. But if I had that money in the bank, I could go up a tier if, in this hypothetical situation, Njai does move to the Saudi league or whatever. And the same would apply injuries, suspensions, all of that. So having money in the bank can be useful. Basically, I'm trying to say, don't force an upgrade if you don't really view that player as an upgrade. And then just really quick, I also want to tag on to this, don't save money in the bank for a transfer. So this kind of goes back to that be adaptable, don't have a set plan going into the season. That's really bad advice. Having money in the bank just for a planned transfer is just, there's too much uncertainty going into the beginning of the season. That player that you may have wanted, maybe he transfers to a different team, or he gets injured or suspended. Who knows? Maybe he flops Gameweek 1 and totally changes your perspective of him. Don't do that. Tip number 6, I'm going to leave my team up for this as an example. Not all of your players need to have the perfect fixtures to start. So this is, as I've kind of talked throughout this podcast, this is the point in the season where there's the most uncertainty. We know the least about each team, and there's just going to be surprises and big changes. Fixture difficulty rating is as least valuable as it possibly will be at Gameweek 1. As we get more data and we see some of these teams, especially the promoted teams play, we'll have more data on how they're going to play and how true their fixture difficulty rating is. So I would completely ignore fixture difficulty rating for the most part. there are going to be caveats to that. Obviously, we basically know how like a team like Arsenal are going to set up. We know how they're going to play. We know how defensive they are, things like that. But across the Premier League, there's just so many more instances where we just don't know. New managers, new tactics, new players. Yeah. If you're not going to completely ignore fixture difficulty ratings, just at least be a bit skeptical, because as we saw last season, Sunderland at home was a fortress. So we may get another instance of that, and maybe it's not even from a promoted team. It could be like Chelsea. They don't have Champions League football. They can focus purely on the league. So we may see something like that where Chelsea just come out of nowhere and they're just like a complete stalwart team to play against. So if we look at my team's actually has pretty good fixtures on balance. The ones I would probably point to would be Chelsea playing Fulham away. That's a historically difficult place for Chelsea specifically to play, but just in general, the Premier League playing at Fulham in Craven Cottage, that's a difficult place to go. Maybe Brentford playing Tottenham. We know Tottenham are going to have a lot of energy at the start of the season. De Zerbi did very well under his little stint that he had at Tottenham, and going into the season, he's going to want to perform very well. Taverniers playing Man City away, probably one of the worst fixtures in the entire Premier League. So what I'm trying to say is, like, not all of your players need to have perfect fixtures. Like, I wouldn't transfer out Tavernier just because he's got a bad fixture to start the season. I could even see a world where I had a team that Tavernier did play. And going back to kind of talking about fixture difficulty rating, yeah, we probably know how Man City are going to play at home, but they do have a new manager. Bournemouth also have a new manager. It's probably more uncertain than it would have been midway through last season, for instance. And the final little point I'll just make on this, yeah, like, you don't need to have all home fixtures, even though home fixtures are great. I wouldn't discount a player like Calvert-Lewin because he's playing Nottingham Forest away, for instance, or I just wouldn't discount anybody based on the fixtures that they have, because the fixture difficulty is just, we just don't know enough. We need more data. And then I guess, like, I'm trying to wrap this point up, I swear, but on the flip side, I wouldn't be bringing in players just because they've got a good fixture. Like, I wouldn't bring in Amad Diallo just because they play Hull. We don't know what his minutes are going to be like. We don't know what Hull are going to be like. So I wouldn't like emphasize fixture difficulty rating as much as maybe we will towards the middle of the season, or even like a few games in, we'll know a little bit more about how these newly promoted sides are going to set up, teams to target and things like that. Maybe Fulham are actually going to be the team to target, and Chelsea playing them is really good, but we just don't know, basically. And the last piece of advice I'll leave you all with, it's a very short and simple point. Don't go without Erling Haaland. Or you could substitute this into, don't go without a player that you're going to panic if they score a hat trick game week 1 and you're going to completely tear up your team to bring that player back in. So I've seen this quite a bit across Reddit, so I have to make this point. I can just see Erling Haaland doing very, very well at the beginning of the season. All these people who thought that Erling Haaland was too expensive to go for, they're going to destroy their team. They're going to sell Bruno Fernandes. They're going to sell Raya. They're going to sell Gabriel. And then they're going to try to afford going from Calvert-Lewin up to Erling Haaland, basically. And that is just, yeah, don't do that. If you're going to panic after an early score and try to get in a very expensive player that you didn't allocate funds for, just have that player initially. Honestly, I think Haaland is probably the best example because he's just so damn consistent. He's going to score. And I saw on Let's Talk FPL, Andy, he did pull up a graph where like a lot of Erling Haaland's goals across his average at Man City have come at the beginning of the season. We didn't see that last season, but generally speaking, so yeah, just don't go without Haaland. I'm kind of in a, like, if we look at my team, I'm going with Gabriel and Haaland. I'm not going with Bruno. I am maybe a little bearish on Bruno. I don't think he's going to hit 21 assists as he did last season. I think having Champions League to contend with and hopefully more than one cup fixture match per competition is going to be difficult for him and Manchester United as a whole. So I feel comfortable going with Mbeumo to hopefully carry some of that Manchester United attacking prowess. Useless word there. But yeah, I'm not saying that Mbeumo is going to replace Bruno Fernandes's output, but I feel comfortable going without Bruno and having somebody like Mbeumo. If Bruno Fernandes scores a hat trick game week 1, I am totally fine with that. I understand how FPL goes, but if I didn't have Haaland and he scored a hat trick, I'm the type of player that probably would be like, well, shit, I got to get Haaland, don't I? He's the captain choice this season. I got to do it. So if you resonate with that at all, I would just go with Haaland at the beginning of the season, go with X player that you can't live without at the beginning of the season, even if they feel a little bit more expensive than they should be. That is where I'll leave it today. Hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully you found that advice useful. I'm trying to adhere to my own advice. We'll see when we get to game week 1 how that turns out. But yeah, more content like this to come. I've got so many ideas about FPL. If you know me, I'm obsessive about FPL and we'll have lots to talk about. So subscribe to get that content straight into your feed. Helps the algorithm, helps all the good stuff. So please do that. And I'll see you next time. Bye. Oh, actually, really quick before I go, I did want to give a shout out to Reddit. Thank you for giving me those comments about my spreadsheet that I put out on Airtable. All those links are in the description. I have a data set where I compile all the player statistics, pointing out a huge error where defensive contributions were not being calculated inaccurately. I've rectified that. Senesi for some reason, wasn't matched into my data set. He's in there, although I don't know how much he's going to play under Tottenham. But yes, thank you so much for that. We're moving very quickly at the beginning of the season. I put out that video basically like right after the prices and all that had dropped. So I had to like re-update my code, fix bugs on the fly. That was one that slipped through. So defensive contributions are in, value added per million based on the underlying data model. That's all updated. The stats should be correct, but if anything doesn't pass the sniff test, let me know. Hit me up on Discord, hit me up on Reddit, shoot a comment, whatever. But yeah, I just wanted to thank you all for that, and it should be good now. But again, this is a work in progress. The code is never fully finished because FPL continues to update things in weird ways. So yeah, see y'all. Bye.